let's take a look at our top selections for
Hi everybody, Mike Beer here with some stakes action at Aqueduct on Saturday. Feels like spring is just around the corner now because we have Gotham Day coming up this weekend in New York. 4 stakes races on this Saturday card at the Big A. Of course, headlined by the Grade 3 Gotham for the 3-year-olds, but another Grade 3 on the card comes first. That's race number 7. It's the Grade 3 Tom Fool for older sprinters going 6 furlongs. Let's take a look at this field right now. 6 horses entered. It's a pretty interesting race. I don't feel like you have, the top sprinters on the East Coast showing up for this race, but you just have some real, hard-hitting kind of horses that you could really rely on to show up and run their races for the most part. And I think it makes for an interesting mix of horses. You also have what I think is plenty of early speed in the race. I mean, there are horses in here who for the most part want to be forward in this race. Whether or not that makes them, on the lead or not remains to be seen. But these are horses who want to be forward in the races. The Timeform US Pace Projector, as you can see here, has the number 3 Chateau out on the early lead. Anybody who's seen Chateau run knows that Pace Projector is very, very difficult to argue with. Chateau is a very fast horse early. There aren't that many horses, at least around this circuit, who are faster than Chateau early in his races. Chateau's problem is, certainly one of quality. He doesn't really feel like a graded stakes kind of sprinter, as fast as he can be early in his races. And it's also one of stamina. You can watch, basically any one of this horse's races, and you can see that he really struggles. He goes fast early, and he really struggles to finish his races off. He has gotten there first 6 times. That includes his most recent race back in January in an optional claiming allowance race where he ran a 96 Beyer speed figure, got right to the front, did not look back on that field, and won fairly easily. He ran well that day, and that's probably the best race that Chateau can run. There are times when he gets loose on the lead and he is very, very hard to run down, but he does not always finish very strongly in his races. I think he will be on the lead in here. There are horses who are fast enough to at least keep him in range in this race. And I feel like if he's the kind of horse who's in a position where he has to fight off a challenge in the stretch, he's in big trouble, especially in a graded stakes kind of race. Other horses have speed as well, though. Pete's Play Call down on the rail can be forward. Share the Ride, certainly the number 2. He feels like a horse who's at his best when they use his speed, but he can rate. He's shown the ability to rate and run in the past, so maybe they'll try to be a little conservative with him. A conservative ride on Share the Ride, a conservative ride on Pete's Play Call, it probably plays to the advantage of Chateau. Not that I think it's necessarily going to be enough to get him there. First, let's start off by talking about Pete's Play Call, because this is a horse, he's 8 years old now. He's been a good horse for a very long time. He's got 14 wins in his career. They're all sprinting on the dirt. He's just a really nice horse. And he's been in very good form. He returned to New York. He left town for a while, was racing in the Midwest, Churchill Downs, Oaklawn Park, places like that, and running pretty well. But he came back to New York last summer. He's just been in good form since he returned here. First or second in 6 of his last 7 starts dating back to last summer at Saratoga. 4 of those are wins, including the Gravesend 2 starts back on a muddy track. It made a mistake winner. That race was first off the claim for Rudy Rodriguez. His race second off the claim for Rudy came most recently in the toboggan, the Grade 3 toboggan on this track. That was going 7 furlongs. And listen, he ran well again. He came out second best at the end of the day there. It was the kind of race where he and another, sort of reformed claiming type of horse, American Power, had the best speed. They went to the front. They went 1-2 around the track. The pace was not fast, and American Power came out on top. That was the 3rd consecutive win for American Power off the claim for Rob Actress. Pete's Play Call ran fine in that race. He was only second best. Share the Ride finished behind him in 3rd. Pete's Play Call can win this race. He's 5-2 on the morning line. That makes him the 2nd choice behind Share the Ride. And his recent form is just, there's just nothing to knock. And he certainly can fall into a little bit of a trip here, maybe riding in behind the lead from the rail. He can win this race. How short a price you want to take on Pete's Play Call, that's up to you. But he's a horse who's certainly a contender in here. The number 2 is Share the Ride. He's the morning line favorite at 2-1. This is a horse who came back off of a layoff last summer at Monmouth for $16,000. He was claimed out of that race, and he has gotten good since they took this horse. They ran him on turf a couple of times to no avail, but since they've concentrated on dirt sprints with this horse, it's nothing but good races. He is now a multiple Grade 3 winner. There are 3 triple-digit Beyers on his card. He shows up and he runs every time. And as mentioned a little bit in the open, we were talking about the pace. He feels to me like a horse who's at his best when they send him and sort of use his speed, but he has shown the ability to rate too. So we'll see what they decide to do with him here with Chateau drawn right to his outside. Share the Ride's most recent race, it was just 2 weeks ago at Laurel Park in the General George. And let's take a look at the replay of that right now, because it feels like the key to him getting the job done here was just the fact that Victor Carrasco used his speed early. They put him right into the race. He was contesting the pace in between horses up the backstretch. Finally got the better of his pace rival coming into this stretch. And he just sort of edged away in there. And he was clear under the wire. Another grade 3 win for this horse. They've been sort of doing a lot of racing with him. Every 2 or 3 weeks, they seem to bring him back and put him in the entry box, but he's thriving on it. He keeps showing up and running good races. If he has to go forward early in here to be effective and he winds up getting hooked with Chateau and having to race, it probably makes him a little bit vulnerable. He's in very good form. He's clearly no superstar. He's not the kind of horse who has a big edge on this field, but listen, man, his overall form's very good. He's got the races that are plenty fast enough to win here, and he's going to take some beating if he runs his best race. Chateau, we already talked about. I just don't think he's good enough. The 4 is Happy Farm. He's a lot like Chateau in that these are 2 horses who were claimed early on by Jason Service. Jason Service got both of these horses really, really good after he claimed them. He certainly improved them. And I think we all sort of know why things like that were happening out of that barn. Happy Farm became a graded stakes winner after Service claimed him. He won the Fall Highway back in 2019. He ran a series of good races out of that barn. He missed a lot of time after finishing second in this race, the Tom Fool last year. And when he came back off the layoff, Linda Rice, his new trainer, in a difficult position with a horse like this. This horse, Happy Farm, did not run well at all in the Gravesend. First off the layoff, it was a wet track. He had been away a long time. Maybe you want to be a little forgiving of that performance. He came back. Linda dropped him right in for 50, and he did win. He wired a field last month over for a $50,000 claiming tag. He won easily, only with an 85 buyer. He's got speed. He doesn't need the lead, but it's a real question as to whether this horse is ever going to get back into the form that made him a graded stakes winner back in 2019. The 5 and the 6, the 2 horses drawn to the outside. They're major players in this race. The first of those is the number 5, Speed Pass. He's going to ship in here for trainer Bob Baffert. You got to respect this horse just probably for that fact. He's very lightly raced. He's only run 5 times for Baffert. He's already a 5-year-old, so how much more improvement we can really expect out of this guy, I think remains to be seen. I'm not going to hold out hopes that he's going to jump up and start running really big races, but he's pretty good, so far to start his career. He won his debut. He came back. His second career start, I thought he ran really well. He caught a wet track at Los Al. He won that race very easily. He seemed to really like the wet track. He drew off through the stretch, 95 buyer. And after that, they bumped him up and ran him in 2 tougher races against better horses, and he was no match either time. He missed a lot of time after that. Baffert brought him back off of almost a year on the sidelines at the end of January, and he came back with this performance. We'll watch this race right now, the stretch run of it anyway, and I think this is probably the best race that Speed Pass has ever run. He was away for a long time. They put him on the lead here first off the layoff, and as it turned out, even though he was favored, the horses who were just going to outfinish him, the horses who were going to run 1-2 in here, they rolled up on Speed Pass on the turn of this race and made this horse race for a very long time. He dueled it all the way around the turn. You saw through the stretch there. He just continued to hang in there and battle very gamely down to the wire. Ultimately, he fell a head short. But I thought all in all, considering how long he was away and how early those horses came after him to make him run, I thought this horse ran pretty well, and that's probably the best race he's run so far. He may have to step up and run a little bit of a better race here to beat this field. I also thought it was interesting that both of his really good races, in my opinion, that second career win at Los Al and that race we just watched, were both over tracks with a little bit of moisture in it. Seems like he kind of likes that kind of going. But either way, he's a horse who could certainly take one more step forward and beat this field. The number 6 is Wendell Fong. He's drawn on the outside. I think there are things to like about this horse. Wendell Fong is a horse who started out his career, and he looked like he was going to be okay. He won 3 of the first 4 starts of his career, including the Gold Fever at Belmont Park with a 97 buyer speed figure. After that, they took some shots. He was a good 3-year-old sprinter. They ran him in the Woody Stevens. They ran him in the Amsterdam. Those races didn't work out for him. He got a layoff after that. I thought he came back early in 2020, 2 starts down at Oaklawn Park and Stakes Company, and I thought he ran well in both of those races. He was no match for Whitmore either time, but I thought he ran well in both of those races. And then he came back over the summer, and he didn't run that well at Saratoga. He didn't run that well behind Share the Ride in the Mr. Prospector at Monmouth, and then he caught another wet track at Belmont and didn't run well, and it sort of felt like maybe this horse was just headed the wrong way. I thought he bounced back with a pretty good effort 2 starts back at Laurel. It was an allowance race. He made a nice run at a pretty good horse in Taco Supreme there, who was the even money favorite. He couldn't get to Taco Supreme, but I thought he ran well and was a good second that day. And then he came back in the fire plug for his next start. That's his 2021 debut. And we'll take a look at the stretch run of this race right now. I thought this horse ran really well in here as well. You're going to see him. He came around widest to the stretch, and he's going to put in a really good finish, I think, down the outside. He's going to close down, share the ride on the money here to get the job done. And he's going to do all that after, and we're not going to show the beginning of this race, but if you go back and watch the full replay, you would see that this horse clipped heels early in the race. He stumbled after that. He dropped back and lost position out to last. But I like the way that he recovered from that early incident, got himself back into the race, and then still was able to produce that finish that we saw to win the fire plug and to beat Share the Ride. And I thought he beat Share the Ride on the square that day. I thought that was a good performance for Wendell Fong. It seems to me that he is now back in the really good form and back to perhaps being the horse it looked like he once could be. And I think that's a good sign that they ship him back in here to try New York one more time. I feel like if he runs another good race here, this is a field that he can beat. There's plenty of speed to set him up. He's got a nice off-the-pace style, but he's not slow early. I think there are things to like about Wendell Fong, and that's why we'll put the picks up there now. I made him my top pick in the race. I'm going to take Wendell Fong on top in here and hope that we get a price pretty close to the way that the morning line has it in here. I put him over the Baffert Shipper Speed Pass. I'm interested in him. I just don't like him enough to put him on top, especially if he takes Baffert money in here. I went 6-5-2-1 in the Tom Fool. It's race number 7 on Saturday at Aqueduct, approximate post time right around 4 o'clock. Good luck.